God's first words to you. We cry out to God in prayer. And Jesus really encouraged us to do this. You know, sometimes we might think that we're nagging, and I don't think we nag enough. If you read in Luke 18, 1-8, Jesus tells us a parable about the widow and the judge, and he says afterwards, I told you this story so that you would persist in prayer. You would persist in asking. But then in verse 8, he says, but will I find faith when I return? Jesus wants to find faith, but he wants us to ask. Matthew 18:3, unless you become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom. He wants us to come with our needs, the desires of our hearts, to trust him like a good father and to bring our prayers to him. But listen, in Luke 5, they bring the lame man to Jesus, and they lower him down through the roof because Jesus was there was a lot of people around Jesus. And, there's a lot of people around Jesus now. And sometimes you can think, he might not have time for this prayer of mine, but he does. They get to Christ. They get to the roof. They lower the man before Jesus. Now, this is extraordinary. God's first words. This man had a need, just like you and I have needs. He had wants. He had a prayer. But what were God's first words to this guy? He said, your sins are forgiven. That's what he said, Luke 5:20. Now, this caused a stir around it, but you need to stop here for a minute. You have needs, you have prayers. Jesus wants you to bring them, but what are God's first words to you? Because in that precious moment, when we come to God with what we want and need, he often gives us something much greater. Listen, what he gave that man when he said your sins are forgiven, that man still enjoys today. He doesn't have his physical health here on earth anymore, but he has his name written in heaven, Luke 10:20. In that moment, when he came with a temporal need, Jesus gave him an eternal prize first. Now, Jesus went on and met his temporal need. He healed him. Jesus hears your prayers. He bottles your tears, Psalm 56:8. He will come through. Keep leaning into Jesus. Have hope today. In the blink of an eye, he can change everything. But in the silence, in the moment when we go to God with our need, he will often speak a first word to us that is far more precious and can take us off into the eternal, now and forevermore. He gives us a whole new path. With this man, he whispered, your sins are forgiven. This man now had a reason to skip, to walk, to run. He had an eternal path that would be forever brighter, Proverbs 4:18. Jesus stepped in and first spoke something eternal to him. What is Jesus speaking to you first? Your needs are precious. He hears them. You can still bring them, but listen. He could be speaking things to you about the broken, the hurt in your soul. He might be bringing a healing and a provision and a treasure deep within your soul that has an eternal path. Listen for God's first words to you today and persist in your prayer. God bless you.